Hello, what's up everyone? How's it going? I'm Sean David. Welcome back to the show. I hope you're ready for some more old school basketball. You know, since there are so many NBA channels, it's kind of hard to find topics that haven't been covered a million times before, but I think I got a good one this time. Actually, I was very happy that I thought of that one. Today, I want to cover Chris Mullin, one of the best shooters of the 1980s and 1990s. But before I want to start with this episode, a quick shout out to my Patreons. Thanks a lot, you guys, for supporting the show. It's really appreciated. And I would say, let's dig right into today's episode. Christopher Paul Mullin was born on the 30th of July in 1963 in Queens, New York. Mullin fell in love with basketball at a very young age while studying the games of Walt Frazier and Earl the Pearl Monroe. Chris was known to play outside at every court that was available, trying to imitate the moves of his favorite idols. During his high school days, he also stayed in New York, and also he began to fall in love with Larry Bird and John Havlicek. By the way, he's the reason why Chris wore number 17. After being selected as New York's Mr. Basketball, Chris was recruited to play for St. John's University in nearby Queens. After signing, Mullin averaged 16.6 points per game in his freshman year. At that time, Chris was kind of turning into New York's favorite kid, and also he had some legendary rivalries with later New York Knicks legend Patrick Ewing.
Number 20, at guard, Chris Mullin. St. John's has defeated Boston College, winners of the Big East Championship here at the Garden.
Wingate, double team baseline, gets off for Ewing, working Addison, two!
Send it in, Patrick.
Well-deserved standing ovation for the tournament MVP, Patrick Ewing. And no other team but these two teams has been number one all year. Another second chance, and Weddington just lets him have it. The Hoyas are the champions.
Even though Patrick Ewing often would come out on top, there was no denying that Chris was a force to reckon with. At the end, Mullin would look back at an incredible college career. At the 1985 NBA draft, Chris Mullin was selected with the 7th pick overall by the Golden State Warriors, a franchise who at that time really was suffering and desperately was in need of a franchise player. When Mullin started his rookie campaign, it showed quickly that Chris could play on the highest level. Even though the Golden State Warriors used Chris more like a spot-up shooter, he did not disappoint and became one of the first scoring options on the team. But midway through the season, something changed. Mullin, who in high school and college was known to be the hardest working guy in the gym, was battling some off-the-court demons that nobody knew about. Well, until they did.
I always would put other things behind basketball and working out. That was always my priority. Little by little, the tables were being turned, you know. Once in a while I'd say, I'm not gonna work out tonight, I'll just go out and hang out. To the point where I was really, get out of shape, and then you don't feel like playing because, you know it's gonna hurt, and so going out on the court became a chore.
He was overweight. He was late for almost everything. And it manifested itself really in his preparation. He wasn't prepared to play physically or mentally.
And I always had good direction since I was a kid. Early in my NBA career, I got sidetracked and kind of got away from what was being good to me.
For the first 3 NBA seasons of Mullin's career, he was still putting up good numbers, but due to his addiction, it was a steady up and down. The Warriors were not making any real progress, and Chris was frustrated with the entire situation. And then he decided to check himself into rehab and to fight his addiction head on. After he returned, Chris was back to his old self, making the All-Star team for the first time in his career while averaging 26 points and almost 6 rebounds and 5 assists. What also changed was that Chris now had some help. 2 players that were drafted by the Golden State Warriors that would turn into a blessing. Mitch Richmond, aka The Rock, and Tim Killer Crossover Hardaway. They now would form the dynamic trio Run TMC.
Hey, this is Ron TMC right here. Me, Mullin, Mitch. Ron TMC.
Gonna go back about 20 years. Out in Golden State, they were here and cheer. Warriors running with the 3-man crew became something. Kim Harder Hardaway, my man in the point. He'll cross on the mold, cold rocking the joint. And by his side, going day after day. Rich man will get in his way. Last but not least, he's a jump shot beast. Our opponents, Chris Mullin, is having a feast. Hard to find a trio better than these three. Tim, Mitch, and Chris, run TMC.
For 2 years, the Warriors were the most exciting team in the NBA, putting up incredible numbers on the scoreboard with their very futuristic run and gun style. At that time, Chris was a regular all-star, always averaging about 25 points per game and drawing many comparisons to Larry Bird. For those of you who haven't experienced and witnessed Run TMC from back in the days, I can tell you those guys were really ahead of their time and would perfectly fit in today's game. Now, as I mentioned, Run TMC only lasted 2 years because the Warriors, for whatever reason, thought that it would be a good idea to trade away Mitch Richmond, which really didn't sit well with Chris Mullin and Tim Hardaway. The Warriors would still be a playoff contender after that, but their version of Showtime was over. Chris would then have the honor to be part of the original Dream Team, which was well deserved at that time since Chris was widely considered to be one of the best shooters in the NBA. The next couple of years weren't too much fun for Chris since the Mitch Richmond trade did not pay off. And after Chris Webber left after only 1 year and Tim Hardaway battling injuries, Chris was a one-man show in Golden State. Also, Mullin then was battling injuries, which unfortunately resulted in the decline of his game. And at the age of 34, he then was playing for the Indiana Pacers and was hoping to finally win his NBA championship. Alongside Reggie Miller, the Pacers would be a title contender, and Mullin's shooting skills really came in handy. In the year 2001, Mullin would retire as a 5-time NBA All-Star with a career average of 18.2 points per game, 4.1 rebounds, and 3.5 assists, but unfortunately without an NBA championship. If I take a look back at his entire career, I would say his peak was in 1991, where he was not only averaging almost 26 points per game, but he also had one of the best shooting performances in NBA history versus Magic Johnson and the Los Angeles Lakers in the 91 playoffs.
Mullin runs out another rebound. He's open from the perimeter. Count it! Spot up jump shot again. Did he put it on the floor? Absolutely not.
7 seconds to shoot. Mullin dipped the shoulder. Doesn't let him get scrambled, generally speaking.
Absolutely. Look at this shot. No! Chris Mullin takes some more time off.
To Worthy, punched away. Here comes Marciulionis, has Mullin on the baseline. And Mullin by Tom Tolbert. Basketball in the Bay Area that they've been since the late 70s.
How about Chris Mullin? Is this guy putting on a show?
30 contest is me. 8 seconds to shoot. Mullin will pull up and fire and bury it.
This guy's putting on a shooting clinic. Now, Magic is taking it to the hoop and driving all. This guy's putting on a shooting exhibition tonight.
And the Warriors have won this game. The first Golden State playoff win at the Forum since 1969.
So how good was Chris Mullin? Well, if there's one thing for sure, this guy could shoot. He could not only create his own shot, but he was also very smart when it came down to coming off the screens. Also, if you take a closer look to his Run TMC days, he was able to run the floor even though he was not the quickest guy. So when we talk about his defense, obviously he was not a great defender, but he was able to do a solid job. So in my opinion, Chris Mullin was definitely one of the better players in the 1990s and definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Alright people, that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed this video and I guess I'll see you next time. Peace, I'm out.
When God made a basketball player, he just carved Chris Mullin out and just said, this is a player.